Welcome to the EcoParent Podcast Network. I'm Sam, the founder of EcoParent Magazine. My partner Alexis and I had zero experience in the publishing industry, no money, and a new baby. But we quit our jobs, leapt into the unknown, and started EcoParent Magazine anyway. It was absolutely freaking terrifying. But at the same time, it felt right. Just a few years into the journey, Alexis was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer that later found its way to her brain. It was utter chaos, navigating treatment schedules, caring for a 3-year-old, and trying to run a fledgling business, not to mention the general emotional havoc. Alexis didn't make it, but the rest of us did, and I've spent the years since raising a wonderful son and building EcoParent into North America's top print magazine for conscientious families. Even 10 years in, we're still a very small crew. If you send an email, it's probably me that will answer you. And this podcast network is a monumental step for us, another leap into the unknown. But like before, it just feels right. And I know that Alexis would agree that the podcasting team I've assembled here is an incredible group of people whose only goal is to inspire the best in you. Okay, I'm going to shut up now and let you listen to the podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by. You're the reason we do what we do.
Hello, beauties! Welcome to True Beauty Confessions, a safe space to do exactly that. Confess our truths, our feelings, and unpack everything that makes us beautiful. Thank you for joining me. I'm Michelle. Good morning, gorgeous souls. This is Michelle Rosetta, your beauty provocateur for our EcoParent Green Beauty podcast that goes one layer deeper with True Beauty Confessions. So with us this morning is Jennifer Ettinger, an amazing, gorgeous, compassionate, incredible soul that glows on the inside and outside. She is the CEO of Pink Dreams Incorporated, best-selling author of Find Your Inner Goddess, health, fitness, cosmetics, style coach, plus beauty brand owner and red carpet personality. Did I get it all in?
It's lovely. Absolutely lovely. Thank you for that.
So I have so much I want to talk to you about, but do you want to know a funny story? It'll kind of get us going.
Tell me.
So this morning, I could not find my black eyeliner. So this totally goes into your book as well. But the thing is, that's my one thing. I don't have to put anything else on. Some people's eyebrows, some people's, if I have my black eyeliner, I'm like, everything is okay in the world. I couldn't find it this morning. And so I do have these falsies as a backup for eyelashes. So my daughters are no longer in my home. And my 15-year-old son is not going to be able to put my false eyelashes on for me. So I was struggling with these false eyelashes this morning going, because I can't find my eyeliner. I got to put something on, right? And you know, the glue, it gets stuck and my eyes have extra skin around them now. So I've got the glue and the eyelash and everything stuck together. And then I'm trying to get it off. And then I tried to put something under my eyes, but basically it clumped. Everything clumped. I had black glue everywhere and it was a disaster.
Aww.
So that is my story going in.
I appreciate you sharing your truth, right? That's very powerful. Where I am now, like you're not seeing eyelashes because where I am with my health after everything I've gone through, I can't risk putting on lashes. I can no longer risk putting on eyelash extensions. So talk about like season for a reason and where we're at, my own personal journey and my own personal choices towards my aesthetics has grossly changed because my health comes first before my vanity.
I really want to dig deeper into that and unpack it. So I read your book and it's really structured so well in a gorgeous way to bring a very complex topic to an individual in a way that maybe they've never even thought about that before, but it brings into a practical manual. And the reason I honor it so much is because I thought I was alone. Like, just because of life circumstances, I've been a single mom, 4 kids.
Wow.
I'm working on having food, shelter, and lifestyle for my children. I, by circumstance, only had so much bandwidth, right? And when I read your book, I was like, I'm not alone, because I'm a philosophy, religious studies major too. I have spent my life trying to reclaim my throne and straighten my crown and not understanding, where am I in this story? So when I read your book, I was like, oh my gosh, she was there the whole time. Like,
Oh,
because
that makes
it's
me
all
so
about finding your
happy.
inner goddess, right? And it was so wonderful because it took these very complex ideologies that we don't explore enough, I think, especially for women in the divine feminine. And you even have that little example of your stones, your stepping stones to your goal.
Yes, to your journey.
So
Yes.
I thought it was such a great example of how you're starting people on just the little steps first, right? You start one step at a time, and then you're going to get to your goal. And in the meantime, you're growing. And I want you to expand on that. Also, the funny thing is, it was so validating because I was very imbalanced at one time. And I think we came to it different places, but the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, I got that from my older children and being in their Indigenous community. One of the elders was like, you are all spirit. Like, you got no feet on the ground, Michelle. You got to chill the F out, get back down on the ground, because this physical experience is part of the journey. So we got to this ideology from different places, but it made me feel very validated. And I really want to know, if you bring us back to that moment prior to the inspiration for this book, where were you? And what in your life got you to the point to create those 4 beauty pillars? And perhaps you could expand a little bit more on what they are, because I deal with women all the time. There's many, many women that still need that message. And I don't think they would know where to start.
The book, in my whole life, Michelle, with any health challenges I've had, with any challenges at all in my life, I'm a huge researcher. So I have a master's degree in museum studies. I'm trained to be a museum curator. I went a different route, but that's always very much ingrained in me, that passion of history and that passion of researching. So no matter where I am in the world, that's always been very important. And in addition to that is understanding mindset. So those are almost, to me, like the 2 foundational pieces. No matter what's going on in my life, you're going to find me, if I have a challenge, with my head down, researching so I can understand the mindset and how to help myself. And so in that particular case, when I find something that resonates with me, that helps me, then the next thing is, okay, if I have a handle on this and I'm seeing a progression, the next thing I want to do is share this to my community, because if it's helping me, then maybe I'll be able to touch other lives. And that's been the correlation for my first ink, Fit Your Style. It's 18 years old. And also Pink Dreams, which is, I believe, 6 years old now. With both of them, anything that I've experienced, I've incorporated into the work that I offer. So the impetus for the book was, I had so much in my brain that I wanted to get out. And I would see clients come to me that were just broken. And I was broken. I've been broken. I've been broken by having a body shape at a time that wasn't popular. You know, it was before J-Lo and Kim Kardashian, and the ridicule that I would receive, even if I was in my prime fitness physique, even if I was wearing a size 4 in my peak, my American 4 or 6, if we're going to bring this into where I was still getting pointed at and ridiculed for the size of my J-Lo. And that really wears on somebody's mental well-being and take me out of my peak when I wasn't in my peak. And I'm going to fashion school in New York City and I don't fit that model shape that was so popular back in the 90s. Like, it was really hard to find myself that I was worthy of being here. And so I started to research all of that and just kind of keep it to my own processing, like how I was managing things. And I was managing things to eat better, to feel more confident and grounded in my life. I was managing things by understanding how to wear clothes that would be a bit more flattering. Not necessarily that they had to be designer, but I had to understand how to work with the shape that I had. because no one likes fingers pointed at them, right? And to be ridiculed. And then fast forward, when I became a trainer after being bedridden with chronic illness, that was the impetus to say, okay, if I write a book, let's bring in my undergrad, which is in visual merchandising, which also had the styling component. That's where I thought, with my clients, with myself, I don't want to be called a pear. That never made me feel good, that I'm a pear shape. So that's where I came up with the goddess shapes. We're all goddesses. Let's understand what our strengths are. Let's identify what our own selves feel like weaknesses. And then let's break that down further in the mindset of doing exercises to say, okay, what within this insecurity can we manage? Can we manage it with better habits? Or do we have to figure out a way to come to peace with it? So for example, like we call this the banana nose in my family, right? And for the longest time when I was young, I wanted a nose job. I'll never forget going to Merle, Norman, which is in the US. And I was young and I was with my cousins. And this woman came up to me and she's like, oh, we need to shave this. And she took that dark like concealer and started rubbing it on the side of my nose. Like, oh, okay, that looks a bit better. And that stuck with me. And even into my 20s, when I was working in visual merchandising, I would stop by the beauty counter and get my little pick me up with my eye cream or whatever it was. I remember once somebody saying to me, what are you going to do about that? I think it was my eyes. Oh, and smile. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have an issue with that. Like I smile. I have smile lines. It's like, it's okay. So like the stigma from the outside world really weighed me down to a point where I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling weighted down and I'm kind of equipped in this now, I'm certified in this, and this, and seeing a repetition with my clients of feeling so low about themselves in such a comparison game, let's create a manual. Let's keep it simplified that hopefully people can identify. They pick their goddess shape. And then it walks them through particulars around their particular shape of ownership and mindset work that you can do, workouts for your type of body, not to try to change your body, but to understand your shape and honor what you have to make it healthy and strong. So that's where the impetus came for the book. I'm really glad that you brought the book up because lots of times myself, I poo-poo it, meaning like, oh, I wrote it so long ago. But it's beautiful to bring it back up because no matter past, present, or future, women still struggle from identity issues.
On that note, there's a few things you said, but the one I wanted to state was worthiness and how interesting it is. Because I get the same thing. I did have a guest on. She's like, nobody says anything to me like that. And I think maybe it's what she's putting out in the world that she's not open to that. Or maybe I'm too open. But people, they're like, oh, I like your hair like this. Or why don't you wear it like this? Or you shouldn't be going gray. Or just about the clothes I wear. If people feel very open to make suggestions about things maybe I really don't want to hear. And not that, it's that sticky place where people are like, oh, well, you're being too sensitive. But there is a place where it's like, did I ask you? Did I want to know about my nose or my lines? And I think part of what we're bringing to the surface is that the beauty industry and the structure around what's in and what's out from the 90s or 2000s or Botticelli, you mentioned Botticelli.
Yes.
We are constantly under these chains and this structure of this is what you are supposed to appear like now. So the problem is that you might be in and then out, but your worthiness is consistently connected to what the external ideal of a beauty ideology is. And that's so wrong because if we bring it back to that physical, you do explain it a bit different, and I want you to explore that more, but the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, like all these things need to be in balance. Let's only stay in a beauty vibration that is entirely subjected to the physical. It doesn't go any deeper. And we're never able to escape that. We're never going to be all in.
I agree with you. And I think that the more we work on our own internal selves, the less that chatter, that social media. And, I've built a company based on social media. My life changed because of social media. So I am very, very grateful to social media. But there is a good side and there's the other side. And the other side is we feel we have a right and entitled to say whatever we want to say to somebody. And so that can weigh us down. right? So it's not the finger, maybe the physical finger walking down the street, but it's also the constant nagging or criticism or posting or comments around a certain picture that can demean one's worth if we allow it. But I do believe when we work around that spiritual self, that grounding self, when we find our happy place, which is always to me a work in progress, otherwise that would be my ego talking that I figured it out, because I haven't figured it out. But when I'm managing it, none of that other stuff, other external chatter, criticism of how I look or how I act or anything like that. Sure, it emotionally from a human self can trigger, but when I'm working on my own self, that chatter lessens, it diminishes, because I really know that at the end of the day, that's really not important what people think.
For myself, I have to say the same thing. I can say all these things like in a negative light in regards to social media and online and whatnot. And it isn't necessarily my comfort point, but I've been able to feed kids because I have access to this social media.
Yes.
And I built enough of a following that I was able to still feed kids, even though I was down to revenue sources. So we need to respect the positives. But what I noticed, children are so impacted by posting the picture and not getting the feedback. I noticed this first when my daughter had done a drawing. It was just so deep and incredible and so beyond her years. And she posted it on one of these art sites, and her friend that had done like a teddy bear with a heart got all these more likes. And she was like, "Mom, I'm a terrible artist." I'm like, "Honey,
Aww.
Those children don't even understand what you just drew." And so that was kind of my first like, oh my gosh, what are we moving into? There is an impact that comes from online that is missing the whole person. And the reason I know this to be true is because I do very well in person. And then when everything was moved onto Zoom, there is a disconnect. And I think we lose when we're only in that physical, and then even further apart where we're not feeling the vibration of each other. I think we can bring that right back around to the relationship we have with our body. And what I think you were saying was kind of our inner goddess.
Yes, you're finding your inner goddess. It's her strength. It's that glow inside of you that you can manage because you feel confident. Like I remember in 2020, in probably the same month, I had someone say to my face, "You have no integrity." Basically, I suck. And then I had somebody else tell me like, "You're amazing." And what was interesting is neither one of those define who I am.
Yes.
Because my truth comes from my work. My truth comes from the work that I do on myself. I aspire not to suck and have integrity, but that's still ego. My truth comes from me honoring and filling myself up mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And that whatever else is going on, it can be a blessing. But if it's not a blessing, it's a life lesson.
It goes right back to your book. And this is something that I think is such a nice thing that you would put in there that a lot of people, a lot of women are not doing. It's the relationship with that inner self. Mm-hmm. I would love to know if you're explaining to someone who's never thought about something like this before, what does it mean to reclaim your inner goddess?
To reclaim your inner goddess, where I am now in this present moment, my definition is to be able to be quiet with oneself and be at peace and in love with oneself. Because we live in a life of, I'm going to use a word that triggers me, the art of busyness. Mm-hmm. How are you, Michelle? How are you doing? Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. Well, when we're so busy, it's an easy way to not have to deal with the internal because we're so full with the external. And I'm not saying with that, everyone, it's a no judgment zone, but we do find that there is a lot in numbers where women just busy themselves to oblivion, to exhaustion, so that they don't have to sit with themselves, find their inner goddess in terms of what is it that I feel like I'm honoring? What is it that I could improve on? And be with oneself in self-reflection. And when you can get to that space whether the eyelashes fall off, whether we have another wrinkle line, or you can never wear eyelashes again, whatever your own personal story is, it's pretty irrelevant because the high vibe that you're on is so incredible that that becomes the priority.
I think that is a gorgeous statement. And it is a really great bridge to what I wanted to discuss with you and get your input on. So for myself, I think that I am at this point where I'm reaching for a higher vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to blame myself. Like I know that where I was served a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think these years, however you want to call them, where we're starting to have our older children leave or be more responsible,
Yeah.
where maybe we don't have as many demands to serve.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a wonderful time for women because for me prior, I don't know that I had another choice. I had to make money. I had to feed my kids.
Sure.
And I don't think I had the chance to really look outside that. Just like looking at your book. Why didn't I read that 10 years ago? I would understand so much more, right? But the thing was I didn't have the chance because I was just serving. I was just getting my job done. And actually in that time, body-wise, I felt fabulous. I really didn't have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I was taken off my feet because of the neglect and a complete disconnect between my idea, my spirit, and my body. I really just thought I'm going to get to point A to point B with no nourishment, no proper care for self. And when I look back now, because now I brought that up in another episode, I am dealing with a different body type. But what I have been coming to understand that through that work of getting healthy, I'm working on a higher vibration because even when I look back at myself, I looked ill. Like I thought I was great. I've looked at the pictures because I had this on a pedestal of, oh, this was my pre-January 2020. And now this is my post-January 2020. And it's so sad because when I look back, my face looks ill. So there was a disconnect there. So it means I'm not there yet, but I can feel myself like your little stepping stones getting closer to that higher vibration, which I think in the beauty industry, if women want to take power back over what we associate beauty as, we really need to start that little journey, even if we can't speak it properly, even if it's not clarified properly. There's actually a quote I want you to unpack that you had written, and I think it's timely. So you wrote, body awareness leads to body confidence, which resonates a body beautiful.
Yes.
Could you unpack that a little bit?
I think, again, this all comes back down to when we become aware, and I love how you just shared, this doesn't mean, even though we're talking like at a higher level right now, I don't want to intimidate any listeners. This can be as intuitive as, oh my goodness, this conversation is striking the fact that I need to drink more water. It can be as simple as that on your stepping stone. Or I'm going to kind of limit that everyday chocolate bar. There's no bad and good foods, everything in moderation. So only you know what it is perhaps that you intuitively want to work on. So I'm not saying chocolate's bad at all. I love my chocolate, but I'm just using that as an example. Like if we're over indulging in something, that could be a red flag. So when we have awareness, it kind of goes back to just that further clarity of oneself and being honest with oneself in terms of what do we need to improve. So say, for example, someone's like, oh, I really need to work out. Well, even going for that simple, no joke, 5-minute walk. That's what the science, you can break it down into chunks. You don't have to go for an hour walk, but even that 5-minute walk is putting you in a place of awareness. It's also putting you in a place of action. Big difference between interest and action. We've got to get to the other side. So when we're in action of that 5-minute walk, what happens? We start to feel confident. Because when we're confident, we're like, yeah, I got this 5-minute walk in. I got it on my schedule. I got it in. Okay, now the serotonin's kicking in and I have some happy hormones happening here. And you know what? I can manage a 5-minute walk throughout my day. And then that confidence kicks in. And then what happens? You see my face just talking about this. I'm smiling in a different sense of energy. I'm feeling beautiful and proud of myself that I've gone from awareness to my confidence to feeling beautiful. And so that's where that quote comes from, is that breaking it down, breaking it down. This is not about taking everything in that book and incorporating it all at once. We build one stone, we walk on one stone until we're ready to go to the next. This doesn't mean that this path is linear. Even if you see, I believe there are like curves to the paths. And the reason why is we're either in a crisis, coming out of a crisis, or we know someone in crisis. So that means I might begin my 5-minute walk and start to build a rapport of 5-minute walks and be successful at my 5-minute walks. But then a real life scenario comes in that pulls me off my walk. So what's the key? Getting back on that stone again, back into the action of the 5-minute walk, right? So it's understanding that life can pull us and take us off the linear goals that we set for ourselves, because our lives are not linear. They are chronologically in age, but the rest of the things that are going on are moving all around us, and things happen that affect our lifestyle. But if we can stay true to that stone and take a deep breath when we come off that stone, just to get back on the action of that stone, it builds that confidence level, which brings us to a beauty that is really like, I always say, you can't find it in a bottle. It's that inner goddess glow. It's just that confidence and well-being of, I am doing the best that I can for where I'm at today in this present moment.
Do talk about compassion quite a bit, and I think having compassion for self is so important. It's something I've had to learn and come to terms with over the last few years. I had very little compassion for my physical self. Now, on each of your stones, because these are very tangible value points that people can put into practice immediately, on each of your stones, it has affirmations, exercise, supplementation, food, water, and image.
Yes.
So if we're working on my tummy, so let's just say I'm menopausal belly, and we use these blocks. So the affirmations, exercise, supplementation. Can you take me through that?
Yeah.
If I was your client and I came in as me, and I said, Jennifer, please explain one of your stones to me, because I'm lost.
Sure.
I'm a lost, broken soul.
Sure. So if you look in the book, you have two things. You have the Bill of Rights, and then you also have generalized affirmations that are good for one's overall soul and well-being. But within that, then, Michelle, we would work on together identifying, creating a very specific affirmation around your stomach. I love my beautiful belly and all that it brings to me in this world. And really, literally putting your hands on your stomach, like, I love you and I thank you for all the gifts you have given me.
That makes me want to cry, because obviously my kids are my everything.
Correct.
I'm tearing just with you saying that.
Right. Well, thank you. And that's honoring. So many women that I would see for 18 years of being a trainer would just be like grabbing the belly, grabbing the extra weight. Like, look at this. And the word I would hear all the time is, I hate. Look at this. I hate this. And I would look at these beautiful women in front of me and like, oh my goodness, like my heart is broken because you are such a beautiful woman. Yet all you're focusing on is squeezing the excess fat or the cellulite or the stretch mark. So together, back to your question, we would create an affirmation about you honoring your beautiful stomach. And I used to have an 8-pack. I made a big chunk of my living wearing crop tops and workout pants for very large companies, very large fitness companies. I now am going to be 54 next week. I don't have that stomach, people.
Yeah.
I love and I honor where I was for that time. I also love and honoring where I am at this time. So we would create that affirmation around your well-being and your stomach and honoring that beautiful goddess stomach of yours, the seasons and the journeys you've gone through it.
Yeah.
But the more that you can send love to that versus hate and anger, we can't release with hate. We can release with love.
Yeah. Literally, I can't stop the tears coming out. So keep going.
I'll keep moving. So we've established an affirmation for you, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Let's just learn to kind of be at peace and honor where we're at. Like, what's our stomach trying to tell us? Which leads us into exercise. So
Yes.
again, it depends on the person and where they're at. Right now, where and how I'm training my clients virtually is definitely an intuitive space. So yes, I'm trained to do sets and reps and share all of that. But even way back when I first started my company, it always started with the mindset. So lots of times, Michelle, when I'm talking about that 5-minute walk, there are so many benefits to a walk that maybe we have to start with that versus the 1 hour high intensity interval training that we expected from the past. And we expect to see the same results. Our bodies are changing. But if we can go for a peaceful walk and help with our anxiety, help with depression, get cardio in and just get some of that beautiful vitamin D naturally, that speaks volumes. So that to me, depending on where you were, and when I work with clients, it's an extensive health history before we create the stone for them.
Yes.
But then the supplementation. Do you need professional experience, such as seeing a doctor or Eastern or Western medicine? Do you need to have a probiotic to help you with your gut, with your stomach right now? Like there's questions we would ask around that. Your food and your water is just a matter of, are you honoring your cells? And I don't even mean that you have to go out and buy everything organic. That's never been my jam. Fit your style was created. The whole point of the phrase is to fit your style. You got to find what works for you, right? That's the whole point of fit your style. But what does that mean for your food? Maybe you're finding that some food are bothering or triggering your stomach. Or like we said, maybe there's somebody who's a little bit of a closeted snacker that maybe needs things more in balance, because I don't believe there's bad and good foods, depending on your situation, meaning you can have an inflammatory situation where you have to pay attention to anti-inflammatory foods. But in this case, what I'm getting at is we need to work with your intuition and honesty of where you're at, where you think you might be overindulging. And then we go into water. So very simple. I'm old school girl, so I'm sorry. I still work in ounces, but you basically take your weight divided by 2 is how many ounces you should have per day of water. So water has so many different benefits, Michelle, and also mental clarity and brain fog can be because we're dehydrated. And also many women and men reach for food because they think they're hungry when actually they're dehydrated. So it's very, very simple. Take your weight divided by 2.
Okay.
I have water with me everywhere I go. It is my mainstay go-to, and it's going to make you feel so much better if you're hydrated. But you also have to be very careful that you stay within your realm, because we can overindulge in water just like anything, and that could become toxic. I don't think that's going to happen in this kind of case. These are like severe cases when you see like on radio shows and they're doing like gulping gallons of water to win a prize and things like that. People become very ill from over accessing in water.
It's very interesting. I'm not reaching my threshold still, even with water. And it's interesting what you're saying. So I got a CSF fluid leak. So it literally means my inner ocean dried up and my brain stopped floating. Like, it's really gross. So everyone else is dealing with boob sag. I'm dealing with that too. But then I'm dealing with brain sag. I'm like, this sucks. That's what it's called, brain sag. I'm like, seriously? So everything's sagging? But the interesting thing is, like, I get brain fog or I feel weak and I have to drink water. And as soon as I drink water, it's like I'm an old Harley now and the oil's just leaking. So I have to keep topping it up.
Well, that's a great way of putting it. But I want to touch on something that you said. Actually, just let's go one more into finishing the stone. Image is just honoring your image. Like, do we live in just sweatshirts and pajama bottoms and no makeup? And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but there is something if we can step into even like a cute pair of sweats and put on whatever makes you feel a little bit better as a pick-me-up to honor your own self, not for other people, but to honor your own self, that you're worthy of the cute little, if you want to wear like sweatpants on and cute sweater, like you're worthy of that, not to feel like you just have to put the stained shirt on because no one's around, because that doesn't high your vibe. So to honor yourself, even if no one else is around.
I love you. Okay. So the whole point is I chose my outfit based upon that too. So I was like, okay, Jennifer's book, blah, blah, just about like choosing clothing that fits you, but also makes you feel good.
Yes.
So that's exactly why I chose what I was wearing today, because of that chapter in your book. I'm like, what makes me feel like I'm going to take over the world? It's a jean catsuit. Mind you, going to the washroom in this, not the greatest.
But you look fabulous.
Super cute.
Not as hot.
Yes.
So you mentioned 2 things. You mentioned sagging. And, again, I'm going to use myself. I'm going to be 54 next week. Things have changed on my body. That's part of my season. And I'm really okay with that. And my husband doesn't love me any less at all. And that is wonderful. But even more importantly is the fact that, yeah, I look and go, man, I kicked butt in my 30s and my 40s with how I looked. And now I feel like this goddess, like mother wisdom that I love this too. And like, why are we so afraid of aging? And you brought up like this ties everything with such a pink bow in your red bow that in social media, Sarah Jessica Parker just got ridiculed last week all over social media. People were criticizing her with her wrinkles and her gray hair. And people are saying, you built a brand where you lived in this fairy tale world with designer clothing and perfection. And now like you're letting your hair go gray and wrinkles. Who are we to judge anybody? I think she's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And I think it takes courage in this world with where we're putting our ideals in the beauty industry, which break my heart because I don't even think women look like women anymore. They just look plastic. She is just exuding this goddess radiance and like more power to you. And if your season, Sarah Jessica Parker, was to be that fashion icon that you still are, but you go back into that beautiful wardrobe, that was your season and your reason for then. And if you're able to stand into your courage now and you're able to represent us that are sagging, represent us that are graying, we have a voice, we have a place in this world, we have a purpose in this world. And it's time that we unite as sisters and go, high five for your courage and strength for keeping yourself uniquely and organically beautiful.
Well, I just want you to know you are embodying right now this maturing evolution of the divine feminine.
Thank you.
I've also done a lot of research around this, and I think that you can probably see in this particular space and time, wherever that may be, there is a blatant leaving out of anything beyond the early stages of mother.
Yes.
There used to be your maiden, mother, crone, and hag, and each had its own wisdom.
Yes.
And if we don't embody that time in that season, we are not going to have that wisdom to give back to our community.
I agree.
And even listening to some of the conversation, I feel very hopeful because I hear from so many of those women that they are actually naturally, instinctually entering this phase where they are shifting and releasing a lot of these ideologies that have been forced on us to keep us disconnected from the inner self and also on a lower beauty vibration. And on that vibration, being the history and art expert that you are, what is the connection between the goddess and beauty at all? Lots of people have never even thought about this. Like, what inspired you to connect those two?
I think because in history, goddesses have left us such profound documentation in terms of what we can read about them in our past, and that they were pillars of strength and warriors in a sense in history. So let's just take out any emotion, taking out anything woo-woo. Bottom line is you can go and you can research and learn about different goddesses and the myths and the being around them. And I just felt that it was so profound that we had something of such a large entity that why can we not learn from the documentation from the past of what each one brought forth? And then also realize that we can be our own entity within our own lives and bring that kind of magic, shall we say, into our own lives to be spiritually, emotionally, physically attuned ourselves. So I do believe that if we go back, and you'll see that there are quotes in the book about a lot of different goddess quotes that really can exude and speak to women to where women are at. And I think we have a lot to learn from them.
If there was one goddess for our communal right now, which one would you like to have with us?
Well, it's funny because I just opened the book and I just opened it up freely. And I always believe in this. And we just came to Goddess Diana, the Roman goddess of focused intentions, to aid you with sticking to your goddess contract. And you can really find her at the Louvre in Paris, but that's for you just to see. Goddess Diana, And that's the intention that came forth with opening the book. That's the one that's speaking to us right now.
So Diana is with us.
Yes, Diana's totally
Yes.
with us right now. Thank you, Diana.
Diana is moving through us.
Yes.
One of the other value points I wanted you to elaborate on a little bit was the journal, because my healing journal was super important to me. And you've talked about the difference between thinking something and then taking the time to write it down. Mm-hmm. Is the journal a part of the affirmations? How does that work when you're working with someone?
The journal is absolutely part of the entire process. So again, we can think about something. That doesn't mean we're going to do it. There's a big difference, again, between thinking or interested versus action. The journal is a form of action to your thoughts because you're putting your thoughts pen to paper. There is scientific research that's been done that when you go pen to paper, pencil to paper, it secretes different chemicals in your brain than it does when you type. Your journal becomes a blueprint of your life where you're going to be able to see when you're in your zone, in sync, and also realistically when we have challenges, so that if you do honor and keep a journal, you're going to be able to go back to that and go, this was a trigger point for me. This is, I understand when things pivoted for myself, or this is when I was feeling in my mojo. So for me personally, I keep multiple journals. I have my work journal, I have my personal journal. My personal journal, I write down everything that I eat, not to a point of being obsessed with it at all. It's to make sure that I'm honoring myself with good foods. I record my workout, whatever that is going to be. I have my affirmations first thing in the morning before I even turn on my phone or I speak to anyone. I set my intentions very first thing in the morning and I keep that journal. So to me, that is absolutely crucial and pivotal because it is the vehicle for our self-expression. And lots of times when I'm first working with people, they're very afraid of what? We talked about this in this whole hour. Being quiet with oneself and listening. The body is always speaking. It's whether or not we want to listen.
So when you go in to write your affirmations, do you have a structure around that? Or can you give an example of how someone would start writing affirmations to start their beauty body journey? What does that look like?
Yeah, I don't even know at the very beginning if I would write my own affirmations. I think at the beginning, just to get oneself involved in affirmations, there are something called, you can look online, the Bill of Rights, or you could look up affirmations, either one. It's a set of mantras, affirmations for one to say on a regular basis. And lots of times you're supposed to repeat them like 5 times a day. So I love myself and that's what counts. I shape my life. I have a right to my thoughts, feelings, and opinions, as do you have a right to your thoughts, feelings, and opinions. I have a right to get what I pay for. I am lovable and capable. So when you go through these, at first you're going to seem like you're a little bit forced with it. But once we start getting it in, this is 27 years of saying these same affirmations. Now they just flow off the top of my head. Right. But I'm a constant student at it. Then when you start to get the mojo of like the overall encompassing affirmations, then we can start kind of working on creating one for oneself. So maybe if your trigger is one way, I hate my stomach, the easy way to create an affirmation is to go the polar opposite. I love my stomach and all that it's brought to me, right? So we want to go the opposite way of what our ego and what immediately our trigger is, to go pause and let's reframe that to come from a place of honoring and love.
That's beautiful. And if I was just to get off this and type that in, do I look for the Bill of Rights?
Put in Bill of Rights affirmations. Again, it's all rights for us as human beings and spiritual beings that we all have a right to. Even when we talked about whether I have the right to just let my wrinkles come in, I still want to color my hair right now, but I use natural dyes. But anyway, I have a right for that. You have a right to your thoughts, feelings, and opinions. I have no right to impede on your thoughts, feelings, and opinions. Everybody's journey is different. Be aware, but don't compare. You have your own rights to find and fit your style.
This is called True Beauty Confessions. So,
yes.
Is there a time in your life that you feel you have not been good to yourself in the name of beauty? And what did you learn from that?
I felt the external pressure of wanting to keep up with today's beauty standards. And I made decisions to have injectables in my face. And now when I look back, I'm really uncomfortable with the photos that I have because it's not me in those photos. It's an extension of me, but I lost myself in that process. And not only from that, but very rare that it happens, I wound up having a whole slew of delayed onsets from those personal choices. But I had to go through that to reach to where I am right now. So I have no regrets, but it's so much freer now that I be aware, but don't compare. So I had to learn not to compare to that standard to get my own peace with myself.
And in essence, it would have kept you behind your growth curve.
Yes.
With self. If we're attempting to maintain a certain external standard, which isn't resonating with ourselves, which we saw with me, I was trying to keep an external standard, which wasn't resonating anymore. And I literally fell apart.
Yes.
And if that hadn't happened, oh my gosh, I would not have learned what I had over the last few years. And I do see even in the way pictures come out now, there's just such a greater glow. So you would have been essentially hindering yourself from getting to your greatest glow.
Well, thank you. And I say season for a reason, right? I went through it for a reason so I could learn from the situation. And again, I'm not here to judge anyone and anyone's decisions. I think the key is that everyone needs to be educated on the choices that they make. My biggest belief is that we all should take a pause. And when we take a pause, whether it's connecting to the internal, when we take a pause to make a decision, that brief moment of time brings us additional intuitive opportunity where maybe I need to research that before I make that decision and go forward. Instead of just reactionary, we pause, we think it through, we process. I think that's the best way I want to end that.
Now, if our listeners want to connect with you, where would you like them to go?
Well, thank you. And I'm a big believer in social community. So please connect. Instagram is @FitYourStyle or @PinkDreamsInc. Twitter is @FitYourStyle. And then my Facebook is Jennifer Ettinger @FitYourStyle.
Jennifer, as always, it has been an honor, a pleasure. And I am in gratitude that you came to sit at our table this morning. And thank you, Diana.
Thank you for having me. Yes, thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Michelle.
I have hope and so much enthusiasm for where I can see our divine feminine is evolving to. And you are such an incredible part of that. And you are embodying it and you are representing that to your entire community in such a successful and positive way.
You are just so lovely. Thank you for your beautiful words and always encouraging me to get together and be able to share my story. And thank you to your listeners. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if I can be of any service at all, you know how to find me now in social. And thank you, Michelle.
So, if you listen to podcasts or watch YouTube, you've probably heard it 1,000 times before. The plea to subscribe and leave a review or a comment. Well, here we are again. But seriously, the review is especially important to us, as it has a huge impact on our discoverability amongst the zillions of podcasts all competing for your attention. So please consider leaving a review. And heck, we'd really love to hear your feedback. This pilot episode of the EcoParent Podcast Network was made possible with the generous support of Ontario Creates. Thanks for listening.